Hey everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today on the channel we're going to be talking about 2002's Narc and its brand new Arrow Video 4K Blu-ray that just came out. But before we get into that 4K Blu-ray review, I always like to give a quick film review, and that's what we're going to do right now. So if you don't want to know anything about this movie, please skip ahead to the 4K Blu-ray review right now. So Narc was originally released in 2002, and this is a real crime noir film because we start in one place and we think it's going to be a very simple movie, and we end in a place that I don't think anyone could imagine at the beginning of this movie, because the opening of this movie is really what led to me actually checking out this film. The only reason I ever checked this film out about, I don't know, I guess like 8 or 9 years ago is I was reading a list. I do this a lot. If you guys have ever watched any of these videos, you'll notice that I discover movies from reading lists. And that's why I love to do lists here on the channels, because I feel like, you get an accumulation of a bunch of different films and a bunch of different film recommendations. But I was reading a list about the best openings in film history, and Narc was really high on that list, and I had never heard of it. I was like, Narc? I've never heard of Narc. And I was like, okay, I like Jason Patric, I like Ray Liotta, I should probably check this one out. And then I did, and they weren't lying. The opening to this movie is absolutely shocking. But before we get too far into the plot, this movie is directed and written by Joe Carnahan. Many people might know him from The Grey or Smokin' Aces. The Grey is another underrated film by him. He also directed Cop Shop from a few years ago, so he's still making movies today. But Narc is definitely his magnum opus. And he actually made a short film before he actually made this film back in college, because he saw the documentary The Thin Blue Line, which actually happens to be my favorite documentary of all time. I have the Criterion Blu-ray right here. The Thin Blue Line is about a Dallas police officer who was murdered during a traffic stop, and they just had to have a face to the crime. It didn't matter if the person who actually did the killing was caught. They just wanted to make sure that somebody was accountable for the crime. And you see that a lot in this movie and Ray Liotta's character, because the plot of this movie is, after that shocking opening, we see that Jason Patric, who was involved in the opening incident of this movie, he's been kind of off the force for the last 10 months. He was an undercover cop. He was deep. He was addicted to drugs. That's what undercover cops have to put themselves through, which is really funny because Jason Patric was in another movie in the 1990s called Rush, where he plays an undercover cop who also ends up getting addicted to drugs. And I actually really like Rush. This is a little bit more serious than Rush. As much as I love Rush, you get Jennifer Jason Leigh in that movie. You also get a great Sam Elliott performance, and he has one of my favorite lines when he finds out that Jason Patric gets addicted to the drugs, and he's like, is he on a run? Which I guess means, you know what? Sometimes you get too deep in the undercover and you start to become an addict. And that's a big part of this movie too, is addiction. But Jason Patric's character, they tell him, hey, you know what? One of our undercover cops, he was killed, and we want you to help in the investigation of this. You were undercover for a long time. You've really seen the darkness, so you can probably help us out and get in this guy's mind. Of course, he ends up teaming up with Ray Liotta, who is a lot closer to this case than we initially realized. But the two of them are going to find out who did this, and Ray Liotta tells him up front,
the only thing you need to know about me is that I'm gonna bag the motherfuckers that killed Mike. If that means breaking every point of procedure, then they're broke.
And there's not too many other big actors that appear in this movie, although Busta Rhymes appears in this movie in a small role and actually does a very good job. Busta Rhymes, despite Halloween Resurrection, he's not a bad actor. And of course, he's Busta Rhymes, so who doesn't love Busta Rhymes? But both Jason Patric and Ray Liotta give world-class performances in this movie. This is easily Ray Liotta's best performance other than Goodfellas. I would say this is second best. He has a monologue in the middle of this movie that actually will break your heart. And for anyone who's ever been married, I mean, it really will get to you. Ray Liotta delivers it perfectly. And the director, Joe Carnahan, said that it actually would get him emotional every time he heard it. He still gets emotional thinking about it. And he really felt like Ray Liotta was his muse for this movie. He said he didn't really always write characters for certain films, but he wrote this movie with Ray Liotta in mind, and Ray Liotta does a great job. Ray Liotta looks heavy in this movie, mainly because he's always wearing like a big winter coat. This is very much a winter movie. I wouldn't have really wanted to watch this in the summer. This feels like the type of movie you watch in February or January. There's a lot of snow coming down. It just looks absolutely freezing in this movie, so it doesn't feel like a summer movie, but he's always got the big winter coat on. He's got a big bushy beard, so he looks heavier than he usually does. Joe Carnahan also said that that's a big reason why he was attracted to Ray Liotta. He looks like he's got some miles on him, which unfortunately, Ray Liotta did pass away at a relatively young age, probably because of his lifestyle choices. And you know what, though? He does have those worn out miles of a man, especially on the police force, who's been through it. So it's perfect casting with Ray Liotta, but Jason Patric does a great job as well. Jason Patric is a very underrated actor also. A lot of people probably just think of The Lost Boys or maybe Speed 2 Cruise Control. That's always what pops in my mind. But, this guy did Sleepers. I really enjoy Rush. And this is probably his best acting acting performance he's ever given. You know, he really does fall into the role. Feel like there's some inspiration from Serpico in here with the outfits he's wearing, but still, great job in this movie. And again, it's a very emotional movie that builds up to a great conclusion that it's so well written by Joe Carnahan that you think this is going one way. That's why I say this is a crime noir film. It ends somewhere where I really didn't expect it the first time that I ever saw this movie. And it does make a lot of sense. It's just that well written. A lot of twists and turns. You really think you know what's going to happen. And they set it up like, okay, it's pretty obvious what's going to happen. But no, they actually really send it home emotionally. And the ending, it's absolutely perfect to this film. Of course, they leave it on a slight cliffhanger where, you know, you kind of have to close it out in your mind and figure out what exactly is going to happen, but I don't think it's that much effort, and I really do appreciate the final third of this movie really giving us all the information of everything that we've built up to. And it's also a very well shot movie. This 4K Blu-ray does clean up a lot of the issues I had. It just looked too much like an early 2000s film, you know, with those like kind of blue filters, but the 4K Blu-ray, when we get into that, they really fix some of my issues because I do think it's a very well shot movie. Also, the score is fantastic, building up that dread I feel like is in this movie, because it is not a happy movie. It's a very, very dark movie, and nobody's coming out of this film winning. And you know what? Rightfully so. I mean, that's kind of what they're trying to tell you in the world of Undercover Cops. It's not a happy life, and I think they're trying to illustrate that to you on the screen right here. You know, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and you know what? The choices that you make, they could end up haunting you. So this is a fantastic film. If you have never seen Narc, even if you don't check out this Arrow Video 4K Blu-ray that we're going to talk about right now, I really do think it's one of those films you should check out at least once, especially if you're a fan of crime films. But let's talk about that 4K Blu-ray right now.
Got nothing to do with the rules and regulations, and everything to do with right and wrong.
So here it is, Narc, courtesy of Arrow Video. I actually ordered this through the Atomic Movie Store. That's why it's been a little late getting the review to you guys, because I ordered it. And one thing with the Atomic Movie Store, first of all, they do the best job when it comes to shipping. I mean, the way they package this stuff, the way they wrap it in bubble wrap, they do such a good job. They really handle your stuff with care. But if you pre-order stuff through them, they're not going to ship it until everything comes in. So I actually pre-ordered this with Crimson Peak and Bad Lieutenant. And they were all supposed to come out on May 25th, 2024, but Bad Lieutenant kept getting delayed. So Bad Lieutenant was holding up this and Crimson Peak. But you should get the review for Crimson Peak pretty soon as well. And Narc, I was really looking forward to it. And the pictures for this slipcover do not do it justice. I absolutely love what they did with the matte finish. And then they got the, you know, the glossy font over here. Also love this new artwork that they designed for it. You come around to the back, you get all your information on the slipcover, which is really cool. You slide it off, same artwork underneath, unless you want to flip it around, because it has reversible box art, which is always cool. So you get the best of both worlds, unless you want to have the same art for both, but you could have the original movie poster, which I think is not one of the most iconic, but it does stand out. I remember seeing this before I actually even saw the movie. So I had kind of heard of Narc because I remember seeing this picture, but I didn't know anything about the film until I read that list. And then when you come inside, now you can get this on Blu-ray, but the Blu-ray and the 4K Blu-ray are not packed together. I'm not used to Arrow doing this. Usually they will always pack in the Blu-ray, but what they did do is they gave us an extras Blu-ray, and man, they gave us a lot of new extras as well. I believe there's 4 brand new extras on there, including a brand new interview with the director, which I absolutely loved. I didn't realize that this guy, you know, he's a very thought-provoking man. He's got a lot of thought behind his filmmaking, and I really enjoyed that interview. You had an interview with the cinematographer. You also had all of the archival featurettes, which go into the making of this movie that, you know, they were previously released, but you get them all, and you get trailers. They gave us so many extras, and in a world where we don't get new extras that often, something I complain about very often here on the channel, I was so excited to get some new stuff, and you can clearly see that a lot of passion was put into this 4K Blu-ray, this 4K Blu-ray transfer, and giving us all of those extras. You also get an introduction from Joe Carnahan when you put the 4K Blu-ray in. Yeah, it's very short, and I felt like unnecessary, but again, that little extra step to make this feel like a true collector's edition in the packaging and giving us all those extras. Yes, you know, I talk about other companies not including the pack-in Blu-ray because I know plenty of people who would buy this, you know, just watch the Blu-ray, and then eventually if they ever upgrade the 4K Blu-ray, they have it. So it's a little bit disappointing that you kind of have to make a choice now. I have seen Arrow Video in the past give us the 4K, the Blu-ray, and then extras Blu-ray, so I'm not too sure why that is. Probably a cost-cutting measure. You know, if I'm going to knock the major companies for doing it, I have to kind of knock Arrow Video too, just to be fair. It's just that I don't really know, so it's all really speculation at that point. I'm still so happy we got new extras, so I'm not going to complain about that. And another thing we got new is a brand new Dolby Atmos track. Just make sure that you guys are checking the audio before you put the movie on, because it will start in the 2.0 track, the original audio. So if you don't want to watch it like that, if you're not one of those purists that wants to watch it with the original audio, make sure you switch it to the Dolby Atmos track. Now, this Dolby Atmos track, it's very good. It's very good. It's just not great. I didn't expect it to be great, so I wasn't too disappointed by it, but I had just watched Bad Lieutenant, which had a DTS HD Master Audio 5.1 the night before, and honestly, I thought that was better than this brand new Dolby Atmos track. They did a good job. They did a good job, using the speakers, making good use of your sides and your rears, everything that you could have hoped for, but it just wasn't mixed the greatest. It's still very good, but in the world of great Dolby Atmos tracks, I just didn't think that this is one of the greatest. I think they did a good job with it. You can set it at whatever volume you want. Everything comes in crisp and clear. There are definitely certain scenes where you'll hear things coming from the left, coming from the right, and from behind you. It just didn't feel like it was that consistent. Maybe they just didn't have the right elements for it. I'm not too sure. This movie, again, was shot on a pretty low budget, but after seeing what Kino did with the DTS HD 5.1 for Bad Lieutenant, I am a little bit slightly disappointed, and I probably wouldn't have noticed it had I not watched the movies in back-to-back nights. I was still impressed with it. It's still a really good Dolby Atmos track. It's just not the greatest. Now, where this movie really does stand out, and the biggest upgrade, is to the visuals, especially on 4K Blu-ray. I had only ever streamed this movie, so for me, this is night and day from how this movie always looked. It always looked like an early 2000s film, a 2002 film, with those blue filters. I just always thought this movie looked very blue. But now you really get to see the detail. It is taken from the 35mm camera negative. And if you're a fan of film grain, this is one of the perfect examples of what film grain can do. We get so many levels of detail in this. Yes, there are certain areas where, that blue filter might still be a little bit noticeable. But overall, I really think that they kind of changed how this movie looked in the best way possible, because I never thought of Narc as a good-looking movie. That's not what I came to Narc for, but now you can see all the attention to detail in their clothes, Jason Patric's hair, especially in a lot of different scenes, Ray Liotta's beard. I mean, all of that comes in crisp and clear. A very cool-looking movie in general, mainly because it takes place in winter. I mean, the rain scenes, the snow scenes, just the little things, all those little details, this 4K Blu-ray is able to capture it. I have no issues overall with the visuals. I thought that they were extremely impressive. They really made this movie. It felt like I was watching a brand new movie. Now, for a lot of people, that might sound a little bit disappointing when we talk about a lot of classic films, so maybe this is something when you come to this movie on 4K Blu-ray, it might not be what you remember it being, and you might be a little disappointed by it, but for this film, in this kind of scenario, I really do think that is for the best. I think that this movie looks better than it has ever looked, and it's not even close. I can understand why some people might be disappointed by that, but for me, absolutely not. I think this is a phenomenal 4K Blu-ray from Arrow Video. They gave us all of the bells and whistles. The only thing I'm a little bit disappointed by, and personally this doesn't affect me, but I know this is going to affect some of the people who view this channel and view this review, so I understand not having that pack in Blu-ray could be a little disappointing. You can just buy the Blu-ray version, but it's going to come down to what do you want. You can't get them both at the same time like you can with a lot of other Arrow Video releases. They gave us a full disc of extras with brand new extras, great packaging, pretty damn good audio, and great visuals. So how would I rate Narc on 4K Blu-ray courtesy of Arrow Video? Well, I would still give this one a very solid 9 out of 10. Yes, I'm giving that the same grade as Bad Lieutenant because I think that the visuals are stunning, and then I also really do think that those extras, for anyone who's an extras junkie out there, this really does push it over the top. I always want to call out studios who give us brand new extras because that used to be a huge selling point for physical media, especially when DVD came around and then Blu-ray, and I feel like once we got the 4K Blu-ray, we've just been recycling the old extras. So anytime we ever get any new special features, I'm always there for it, and I really do appreciate it, and I am so happy that Narc turned out to be a great 4K Blu-ray. But anyway, you guys can watch this, even if you do stream it. I think it's one of those movies you should definitely check out. So even if you don't want to watch this great 4K Blu-ray, I can completely understand. If you need to save some money, just check out this movie any which way you can. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it here for me on another episode of Let's Talk. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on, share this video, maybe even become a channel member like John Doe Juggalo, Jason Martin, and Mr. Smelly Potato, or become a channel director like Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews and have your own review each and every single month. But if you got no money to throw our way, guys, don't you worry about it. We just appreciate you checking out this video. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, get out those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.